Welcome to your tutorials for this week's routine. Tutorials are such an incredible way to make sure that you are, one, doing the moves right, two, to help improve your overall form and become routines, three, it's a way for you to ask questions to myself, and four, it's a way for me to give you those answers back, which I think ends up creating a really wonderful connection of community. So today we will start to go through a few questions that came through and make sure that you know what's up. Hip flexor pain is one of the more common questions that come in across the board in fitness. So a lot of people have a problem with their hip flexors overreacting to exercises. Your hip flexors are this area right in here. It's like where the leg and the hip connect. There is a sinewy muscle that runs through there. And what you may find this week when you're doing the oblique series is that the hip flexor wants to become overactive when you're taking these long leg kicks. So the first thing that I need to tell you is that your hip flexors and your low belly are directly correlated. The more that you can both stabilize and pull in through the low abdominals, the less you will end up feeling in your hip flexors. This really has to do with where you initiate the motion from. This does take time and practice, but let's see if we can dive in to a few of those things today. To start explaining this concept, I'm going to show you a standing exercise. So if I were standing like this, there are two ways that I could lift my knee up. The first way is by utilizing the hip flexor. So right now I'm pulling from this sinewy muscle in order to get my knee closer to my chest. The more that I utilize this muscle to lift the knee up, the tighter I will get in my hips. Yeah? Okay, the second way that you can lift your leg is to keep the knee soft, keep the hip flexor relaxed, and then think about scooping in from the low belly. So right now, my low abdominals are drawing in and up in order to create movement in my leg. Notice how I cannot get my knee higher than my hip when I do it correctly. Applying this concept to the floor can be a little bit more tricky. I think it's easier to grasp when you're standing, but the idea is still there. So when I start to create motion with my leg, I cannot just use the hip flexor to bend my knee in and then to kick the leg up and then to let it throw down. That's almost like, I want to say it's almost like too aggressive. So instead, think about getting the low belly firm and flat. Now, just imagine, visualize with your mind that that low belly muscle is what draws the leg up and in. This stays loose, touch it, get that muscle relaxed. Then the low belly stabilizes down in order to lift the leg up, and it stays active as the leg presses back down to the floor. Now, this next part I'm going to tell you is super, super important. If you have if you have super tight hips, no matter what you do, no matter what you're thinking about, the position that I just showed you is probably still going to be too big. So we need to find some alternatives to make it a little smaller. Okay, the concept is called shortening the lever. I'm actually gonna run through this really quick. So right now, my leg lever is very long. An alternative would be to bend the knees. That shortens the lever. Let me show you in a plank. Here, my lever is really long. An alternative for a plank to tame it a little bit would be to shorten that lever and go to the knees, right? Like you all have heard me talk about arms. If this lever ends up feeling too tight on the back, then you shorten the lever by bending the elbows. So shortening the lever is what we want to think about doing in this series. So the first lever that I would shorten is this leg that's asked to stay down on the floor. I would go ahead and bend that knee, and the reason why is because this position, right, you can see it, this is more flexible. If you're tight in your hips, not as flexible. You want to bend that bottom leg, which offers a little more leeway, a little more give. The second lever that you want to shorten would be this leg. So there's a good chance that taking your leg all the way out straight on the floor doesn't feel great. There's a chance that taking your leg all the way up in the air doesn't feel great. So in that case, I would move to something that looks more like this. I would tap, tap, knee in. Little bit in, use the low belly. Again, tap out, tap halfway in, lift halfway up. Out and in and halfway up. But there's also a chance that coming halfway up doesn't feel right now either. So if you start to get overactive in your hips, your move is going to be this. It's simply going to be tap, tap, hold. Notice that this foot I have flexed. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm pushing my heel into the ground. That's helping me release the hip, so there's no weight here, and now I can focus in more on my low belly. So I love to utilize the floor as a mechanism to help me stabilize deeper through here. You should definitely try this because it's really good. Foot pushes down, belly pulls in. Several people asked about this foot when you're doing the leg sweep. So should it be pointed or should it be flexed? Now, the truth is that it doesn't really matter, okay? You can point the toe, you can flex the foot, you can try it different ways. However, if you're looking for like a little bit of a mental challenge today, my favorite thing to do is to point on the way forward, then flex on the way back. The flexing on the way back will often help you grab a little bit more glute as you drive through the heel. So I think that I like flexing on the way back. Again, it's not right or wrong. When you turn down to the belly, those of you feeling a little more advanced this week, can you keep this leg active even when you're here? So that as you press up, you land in hands and knees with an active leg. Once again, you can point to open, notice how low my leg is, and you can flex to close. That's your tutorials for this week. I do hope that you learned something today. Keep me posted with feedback, keep sending your questions, keep becoming